Well, first off, Rodrigo, congratulations on the movie. I just finished watching it and really enjoyed
Oh,
it.
thank you.
So, why don't you start by setting the scene a little bit for us and describing you play a bit of a nefarious character here named Luca. Talk a little bit about who he is and how he fits into the plot.
Well, the film discusses what we call the modern day enslavement and human trafficking. The character I play is called Luca. He is the manager of a junkyard that he basically lives off the exploitation of his workers. He's clearly represents the oppressor in the film. I do not like to call him a villain. I would say, the antagonist of the story. He's a man who is very aware of the terrible things that he does, and he chose to live this life because of the life he had before. So this is also a survivor. He's also a product of an extremely unequal and an exclusionary system, which doesn't make him a victim. This is a character that does not have a redemption. But the whole idea here was to try to portray, not a stereotypical villain or antagonist, but to humanize him so you get to understand, where he's coming from.
Yeah, I thought that was something that you brought out really, really well. And I was wondering how you approach that idea of trying to humanize someone who is a pretty unsympathetic character. And what's the process that you go through trying to understand a character like that most people would see as a villain, as you say, but really to show a more human side of an unsympathetic character?
Well, we start with the fact that usually these characters are more one color, like they're more, in a way, stereotypical. And I thought that it was mandatory to play this part, especially in a realistic subject matter. So we start with, inequality. This movie takes place in Brazil, but it honestly could have taken place anywhere in the world. There's, according to researches, there is 40 million people as we speak in a modern day enslavement and human trafficking situation. So I started from, like, where does Luca come from? Like, what is his backstory? And when you talk about social inequality, it's not just income. It affects the way of living. We all have the right to live in dignity. And so we're talking about schooling, health, employment, transportation, and all the basic things that this guy didn't have growing up. And even worse, we're talking about a guy who, he has a line that says, I came from the slums. I came from the worst. It was stinky. My house, I would walk around. So, and for me, growing up in a medium class, regular family in Brazil, I really wanted to make sure that I got closer to that reality and talk to people and research deeply to at least suspend any kind of judgment and comprehend, get closer to that reality, to be able to respectfully to talk about this. So we started with that, and the whole challenge was throughout his journey and throughout the narrative, how could we find, and I was invested in trying to find every moment possible to humanize him,
Yeah.
to find a way to, you will not gonna like him, and you shouldn't. You might judge him. I just wanted you to understand where the bigger picture. It's very easy to say, villain, hero. Now, when we take a closer look and understand, that these are complex characters, especially because it was based in reality. That is, to me, was mandatory. We needed to get take a closer look and really try to portray the story and these characters in the most realistic, human and three-dimensional way possible.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit more. I understand the story is based on something that the director had seen on TV. Did you?
Correct.
What sort of research process did you go through to get into that real world aspect of the story?
Well, the director worked with a lot of, he worked listening for, I don't know how long it was, but he was working, interviewing people that were in that situation before. And it started with that, and then a big research, a very long, I think it took him 2 years to, put this all together. What I did was, in our first meeting, which was 5 hour long, we talked about, his research and how we could collaborate and really trying to find the best way the most realistic and human way to tell the story. And then I went online and researched a lot, which, was very, very painful, because as more as I researched, more shocked I was to realize how real. And there are a couple of documentaries, there are images, there are videos, and if you look, and it's not fake news, it's real stuff. It's very shocking, very moving.
Yeah.
So that was the base of it, that big research, and then we even had an actor on set that played a Bolivian actor, Jose, which he comes in the second half of the film, that was a victim before. And he would talk to us during like lunch breaks. We would have conversations and he would talk to us about it. So we were really based on real data and real stories, and it was all based in real life, basically.
Yeah, it made me think from the American perspective of what former slaves went through in the South, of being re-enslaved through this kind of work bondage. But of course, it continues today. And talk to me a little bit about, on the film, what was the scene for you that was the most difficult for you to perform as an actor?
I wish you could have asked what was the easy one.
Yeah,
the easiest one.
Give me that first, and then give me
the. Because there's none. So that's an easy. The easiest scene, there isn't. The toughest one, and I mean it when I say that. I can laugh now, but it was tough, man. It was, oh boy, it was real tough. It was a tough process. It was painful. But to answer your question, the toughest one, I think, is the scene where Luca tells Mateus his backstory, where he came from. Because I worked on that scene, I kid you not, worked on the text, on the lines, and I had help with that. My manager helped me, my wife helped me. I wanted to debate and to discuss, and Alex, our director, was open to it. I'm like, what is the most realistic human way, and not over the top, and not trying to find a redemption for the character? Like, it was such a thin line to find the right way to do that scene. And it was a lot of work. And not only to finding what were the words, but also finding the truth of where he was coming from. He was bitter with life. It was a combination of rebellion and bitterness, and where was him?
Yeah.
To be able to talk to the kid and say, this is why I do what I do. And if you don't, I'm sorry to say, but you're going to spend your life in misery. It's what it is, because we are talking about the system. We are talking about inequality. We're talking about this very vulnerable place to be that, in my country, I can say, almost half of the population. It's huge, huge, huge as we speak.
Yeah, so I was curious. I mean, obviously, we know you for these big roles in the U.S., but picking a role in a Brazilian, it's obviously, as we discussed, has universal implications. But it's set in Brazil, it's in Portuguese, although it's dubbed for the U.S. audience. What drew you to do? Are you drawn to topics that are for a Brazilian audience, or do you want things that kind of speak to an international audience when you're looking for a role?
No, I more and more with the undeniable globalization that we're going through. I love, not that I choose, not that this is the one thing that will define what role I will play. Of course, there's a combination of things, but I'm more interested in things that will, more universal stories that will translate to the world, because I think that, especially after, well, not after, we're still in pandemic mode. So you think after pandemic, like it's still there, but one of the biggest lessons is how much we depend on each other, how much we are interconnected. And we have to deal, as a society, as a global society, we have to deal with the implications of living in the same home, if you will. And so I'm interested in discussing those things. This film talks about social inequality, the consequences of social inequality. But of course, I will do this kind of film, and then I could also do a film like 300 that is also talking about history, but in a like a graphic novel look. But it depends. It depends on the story. It depends on the character. It depends on the people that I'm going to work with. Usually, I know more the things that I'm not interested in doing, like things that are more stereotypes, and especially being Latin for the world market in Hollywood specifically, like things that I know that at least I'm not playing a stereotypical part, that I know that I'm representing my heritage, being Latin, being Brazilian, in a full, in a complex way. I think that's very important too. I know we have been, conversations have, been growing lately about inclusion, diversity, and all that. And, I think that we're willing to see more and more now the result of this up on the screen, behind the cameras as well. So those are important things to me as well.